A warm welcome to this Essential Quinn video. Today I am bringing you some interesting words from Professor James Tour of Rice University, Houston, Texas. Professor Tour is one of the world's leading synthetic organic chemists. He's an expert in the building blocks for life. Professor Tour has over 785 research publications, over 130 granted patents, and over 100 pending patents. In 2020, he became a Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry. Below, I will post details of the full video, which I promise you is essential viewing. Professor Tour, despite his academic and scientific success, is a committed believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. So let's now hear Professor Tour's views on evolution and why this encourages him in his faith. Here now are the short clips from Professor James Tour.
I mean, there's articles that are written, purely scientific articles that say the same questions we were asking about for the origin of information 50 years ago, we will be asking 50 years from now, because it is an enigma. We have no idea where the informational code came from. The general public is totally clueless on this and misled, because the general public, surveys have been taken, 2/3 of the general public believes that scientists have created life in the laboratory, life like single cells, and 1/3 of the general public thinks that scientists have made simple, complex organisms like frogs, small complex organisms like frogs in the lab. We've not even made a cell. We don't even know how to make a cell, and everybody is thrown off on this thing. And this whole idea of the primordial soup model that everybody hears about in school, which is molecules were in a pond, there were some lightning strikes, those formed the right sort of molecules that came together, that formed a cell, the cells came together and formed these organisms that came out of some pool of water. That is the typical model that is actually not just for fourth graders. That is spoken about even in advanced textbooks in the universities. I'm talking about advanced textbooks for graduate students in university. That's the extent of the model, and that is fallacious. We're not close to getting life. We're not close. Even if we could make all the compounds that we think we need, because we can take them from a cell, we wouldn't even know how to put this thing together. So how on a mindless early Earth could it have put this thing together? And time doesn't solve my problem. A billion years of letting these molecules stew together won't solve the problem. It just won't solve the problem. Now, getting back to your other question, the evolution was from simple to more complex, or simple changing in some ways deleterious, some ways better, getting eventually to more complex. So going from a single cell organism to a human being, that is the two ends of evolution in a sense. But more fundamentally then is, before evolution can even start, you have to have that first cell, which is an entity, which is what's called a lipid bilayer. It's like a sac. And inside of that, although the sac is extremely complex, it's not just like a burlap bag or something, it's extremely complex. And then you have all the inner workings of that. Nobody has ever made a cell in the laboratory. Nobody has even taken all the components of a cell. So if you just take a living cell, you deconstruct it into its fundamental pieces and try to put that thing back together again. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody's ever even come close, and nobody even has an idea on how to do it. And every year, that target of making a cell becomes more complex, not because the cell has changed, but because we realize more and more the complexity that's in a cell. It used to be thought that that's just a blob of protoplasm, but it's not that at all. It's a whole hierarchical system of operation of molecules working together. So nobody knows how to even take the basic constituents and put that together. Well, how about making the basic constituents in a way that an early Earth would have had to make it. This gets back to the origin of life. How do you make those basic constituents? Nobody knows. Steve Benner has said that, with all that he has done in this and all that's been done in this area, now we are all set for Darwinian evolution to take over. I mean, Darwinian evolution, you got to have the first cell. We're nowhere close to having the first cell. But Steve went out and he told this to the press, and the press takes it up and goes with this banner, and then it ends up in textbooks. This is the way it's done. And I'm just out here crying out that it's wrong. There are so many chemists that see exactly what I see. But the ramifications of coming out against this and butting against consensus are that you could lose your funding.
Why are you controversial? What are you getting yourself into that's causing this backlash or this controversy? Can you kind of explain that aspect of things?
Yeah, I'm normally a person that avoids controversy. I just don't like controversy. I'd rather not even speak and walk away and just go on with my life. But for one thing, I became a believer in Jesus Christ at the age of 18. And I have read the Bible meditatively, slowly, pensively for 45 years every day. I'm saying every day for 45 years. I read it from Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through Revelation chapter 22, and when I'm done, I start again. And so that immediately is going to cause a controversy. And especially being in a field of science, a lot of people disagree with some of the feelings that I have and the thoughts that I have, but I'm very vocal with that. So that was controversy number one. Number two then became making comments known about origin of life that I just don't understand it. And I saw a presentation on carbohydrates a few years, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I walked out of there and I had just seen the complexity of carbohydrates, which are sugars, sometimes called saccharides. Saccharides, carbohydrates, sugars, it's all the same word. It's all the same material. And so the complexity, and I thought, my goodness, this is so much more complex than what we're led to believe and to think that we understand this. So I thought that I'd actually, it was a friend of mine, David Berlinski, said, Jim, why don't you write an article on this of how you don't see how these things could have evolved this way? And so as I started looking into it, I started trying to track back evolution to the beginning. And that brought me into the area of origin of life. How did this whole thing start? I didn't even really know what the claims on the table were. And so I asked colleagues, and they gave me some references, and I started to read about this, and I said, this can't work. This just doesn't work. This chemistry that's being proposed, the chemistry itself screams out that life could not have started this way. And so I wrote an article on that, and that's what kicked the whole thing off. And it's been a whirlwind ever since. But the one term that's allowed at all levels in the university, from the administration all the way on down to the undergraduates, is he or she is a creationist. And they'll label you with that, and that's the thing that they will dismiss you with. Well, how about you take on this creationist, and we will not talk about creation, we will not talk about God, we will just talk about the science. Would you like to go toe-to-toe? So science and their theories change all the time. So what I try to get scientists to do is say, wait a minute. Is that a fact or is that a theory? Is that a fact or is that a theory? And so, the main reason to encourage me in this whole process is that people are coming back to faith. People are seeing that, hey, the claims that scientists had made are not the end-all, be-all. And so for that, it makes me happy. But when I'm speaking on origin of life, I'm only dealing with science. So to say, there he is, he's throwing God into this. No. I use science, but I say the science itself testifies that this could not be how life formed.
For over 75 years, we have been living in a post-Christian societal environment. In fact, I would say society and our governmental systems are aggressively anti-God, and anti-Christian. This applies to the UK, Europe, and the USA, and increasingly the whole world. Irrespective if you live in a Roman Catholic secular country like most of Europe, a Protestant secular country like the USA, or a Protestant non-secular country such as the UK. It used to be only communist countries that demanded their children be taught there is no God. Here in the West, whilst the concept of God is not banned, for the past 70 years our governments have adopted an even more pernicious approach, treating the subject of religious education as fables and fairy stories that only stupid, ignorant people believe in. We are therefore in the second and third generations of people who have no foundation in the knowledge of a Creator God and the truth contained in the Bible. The Bible contains the Old and New Testaments, which is the historical document revealing how God has interacted with us and revealed himself to us, ultimately providing in himself, Jesus Christ, the atoning work on the cross, which allows all to be saved by his grace through faith. Children are taught we evolved from apes, when at no point did Darwin ever explain how the first living cells could themselves evolve and progress to whole living organisms. Everything we know on this matter is conjecture. As Professor Tour said, today scientists who put all the necessary ingredients together in a perfectly controlled environment to make a cell, as they theorize happened billions of years ago in a primordial soup, find it impossible to make such an organism. A major research project of animal DNA has also found that there is no evidence of evolution in the historic DNA records. The code was always there from the start and hasn't changed. Isn't it ironic that the more science evolves its methods of understanding our world, they increasingly support the fact that God created it and us? My friends, we all have a choice to make. Believe we came from nothing, or that God created us, the earth, the heavens, and promises us everlasting life in return for our faith. As Bob Dylan says in his famous song, When He Returns, how long can you falsify and deny what is real? I hope you have enjoyed the words from Professor Tour and my message. I would welcome your comments. Thank you for watching.